headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. A day ahead of the midterm elections in the United States, President Donald Trump has reimposed full sanctions against Iran. He called them the most severe sanctions ever. Millions of Iranians protested on Sunday against the United States' action. The demonstrations also marked the anniversary of the seizure of the U.S. Embassy in 1979. Marchers held banners saying, "Down with the U.S. and death to Israel." Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has gone on television to promise that his country will continue to sell oil in spite of the sanctions.
The 40-year history of the Islamic Revolution is one of frequent failures by America in Iran and in the region. And with the help of God and the resistance of our people, this last trick of the enemy, which means economic warfare, with remarkable support from the American media against the Iranian nation, will also fail.
The U.S. government has given partial exemptions to 8 countries that buy oil from Iran to give them time to adjust, but it says the sanctions will begin to reduce Iranian oil exports to zero.
We have decided to issue temporary allotments to a handful of countries, responsive both to the specific circumstances and to ensure a well-supplied oil market. The U.S. will be granting these exemptions to China, India, Italy, Greece, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Turkey.
However, in his TV address, President Rouhani said Iran will overcome these sanctions.
This fact is that the Islamic Republic of Iran today can sell its oil, and God willing, it will sell it. Even if they did not make these 8 countries exceptions, we would sell our oil again. I have not seen any administration in the White House as racist as the one in this period. So when a group is racist and does not care about international laws, then you cannot expect more from them. This is the current situation that we are seeing.
President Trump has been campaigning across the country in the run-up to Tuesday's elections. On Sunday evening, he was in Georgia, where the Democrat Stacey Abrams is hoping to become the first black woman governor in the history of the United States. Trump called Abrams one of the most extreme far-left politicians in the country. And once again, he warned that his government will not let the Migrant Caravan crossing Mexico enter the United States.
How about that caravan? Do you want to let that caravan just pour in? I don't think so. In the meantime, you saw, last week I called up the United States military. We're not playing games, folks. There's no game. Because you look at what's marching up, that's an invasion. That's an invasion.
Trump's administration has been reinforcing the southern border since Friday. There are more than 2,000 additional soldiers, helicopters, drones, and barbed wire. There are already more than 3,000 National Guard members, and they could reach 15,000, the biggest contingent used in decades inside the U.S. Let's go to our correspondent Jorge Gestoso, who brings us the latest on the elections from Washington.
Today, on the eve of the midterm elections, President Trump is planning to be in Cleveland, Indiana, and Missouri, and former President Barack Obama in Virginia, trying to catch the last-minute votes. What is very interesting is that 35 million Americans, almost 35 million Americans, have voted early, and that has changed the predictability of the polls because many of them are first-time voters and they don't know exactly the way that they were going to vote. So it's still a big question mark what is going to happen tomorrow. Trends are indicating that most probably Democrats are going to gain the House of Representatives. The magic number is 23 seats that they have to recover. They believe that they're going to go further than that. But in the case of the Senate, most of the polls are indicated that most probably the Republicans are going to keep the majority on the Senate. On the other hand, this is conceived as being is an agreement that is basically a referendum on the 22 months of the presidency of Donald Trump, for better, for worse, for better and worse, according to the pundit party will do it. It's going to be a way to reaffirm what he's been doing so far. Mostly he has put emphasis in immigration, and it's exacerbating hate and fear. By the Democrats, what they're putting on the table in the message is health care, and we'll have to see what is going to happen, but it's extremely unpredictable what we're going to see tomorrow. The presidency, according to the different polls, President Trump has about 46% of approval, 52% of disapproval, and that could play also a factor on both ways. So we are here and we're going to be doing reporting all throughout the day and all throughout tomorrow to keep you posted on what's going on these midterm elections.
But despite the negative messages about the Migrant Caravan from the U.S. administration, many people believe they should be welcome. That is the case of residents in the small Texas border town of San Elizario. People believe that members of the Migrant Caravan making its way towards the U.S. are hard-working people. And many of the inhabitants also have a migrant background, and they want new migrants to have the chance they had when they arrive in the country.
It's not an issue for me for any kind of immigrant coming in, because they're humans, we're human too. We were born and we were taught how to treat them with respect.
Also, a balloon that represents Trump as a baby has been launched by political activists in San Diego to reject his policies over migration. The balloon depicts an orange-colored baby Trump dressed with diapers, with small hands and an angry face to mock the U.S. president.
He is infantile. He is like a toddler when things don't go his way. Do you ever see him get interviewed? And it's in some of our most horrific things that have been happening around the world. Hurricanes, shootings, bombings. He always manages to make it about him. Isn't that funny?
Donald Trump has moved the United States, if not into fascism, right up to the point where we're now in a fascist police state with threats of more wars.
Meanwhile, the Central American Migrant Caravan continues its march to the north. At least 2,500 migrants from the first caravan have already arrived in Mexico City. They are being housed at a sports stadium. Others decided to gather in Puebla to rest and to wait for more migrants to arrive. They plan to set off early this Monday for Mexico City, 100 kilometers away.
Well, I'm a bit exhausted because of the cold and because we have not eaten. Everything else is going well, thank God. I'm having health, I just have not eaten. What I want to do? Well, help my parents, get them out, give them everything I can.
Our correspondent in Cordoba, Mexico, Eduardo Martinez, tells us more about the route of the first caravan.
We are still in special coverage following the first migrant caravan. Right now we're in Cordoba, in the state of Veracruz, where the majority of the people from this group who left Guatemala on the 19th of October are hitchhiking on the highway to reach Mexico City. They're still over 300 kilometers away from their next destination, but the migrants say they're still strong and determined to keep going.
Thank you, Eduardo, for that report. So let's look at how the migrant caravans are moving. There are currently 4 caravans. The first caravan, in red, came from Honduras and has more than 4,000 people. The second and third caravans, in yellow and green, came from Honduras and El Salvador and together have 4,000 people. The fourth caravan, in orange, also came from El Salvador with more than 1,000 people. They all have now reached Mexico. Mexican people continue to show their solidarity with the migrants. A couple invited a group of Hondurans sheltering in their town to their wedding. The Mexican bride and her Honduran groom, who is also a Mexican resident, laid on a treat for the migrants who are temporarily sheltering in the church on their journey to the north. Migrants cheered the couple, sharing their big day. According to the tradition, the bride threw her bouquet, which women from the migrant group tried to catch. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. 3 Venezuelan soldiers guarding the border with Colombia have been killed in an attack by paramilitary forces. Venezuela's Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino, explained on Twitter that a dozen more were wounded, including officers. Padrino says this was a payback for capturing 9 members of a paramilitary group in the area who were in possession of heavy weapons. The Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has met the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on his visit to Pyongyang. The two leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral ties in fields such as the economy, culture, public health, science, and technology. This is the second country of an international tour by Díaz-Canel. He has already visited Russia and will travel on to China, Vietnam, and Laos. The trial of Mexican drug lord Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán is beginning in New York. The alleged head of Mexico's Sinaloa's drug cartel is charged with 17 counts, including murder, drug trafficking, and money laundering. El Chapo allegedly led the cartel from 1989 to 2014. The Sinaloa cartel is said to be the largest drug trafficking organization in the world, with thousands of members. The trial is expected to last more than 4 months. Peruvian police have used tear gas against activists during an anti-bullfighting protest. Hundreds of animal rights activists gathered in the capital Lima during the country's traditional annual bullfighting fair. The protesters want to push for the outlawing of bullfighting. They argue this practice amounts to legalized torture.
No more killings. That is the only thing we want. Stop the killings. These sort of games should not exist.
Peru is one of the 8 countries which brutally tortures bulls in front of people and which considers it a form of cultural art.
Colombia's Ombudsman's office has denounced the displacement of almost 800 people, including 250 children, in rural areas of the Department of Santander due to the fighting between armed groups. The massive displacement started this Friday from the municipality of Acari as the result of confrontations between the National Liberation Army and the Popular Liberation Army. The United Nations has issued an alert over the risk of a new displacements in the same area. Hundreds of Costa Ricans have visited the largest floating bookstore in the world. With over 5,000 books, Logos Hope is docked in the port city of Punta Arenas and will be there until the end of the week. Visitors can buy books at prices usually less than $2. Logos Hope travels around the world. It visited Costa Rica last time in 2003 and attracted over 80,000 visitors.
The ship experience seemed very nice, very interesting. The visit I had taught me a lot. Everything they explained, the books that are there.
Roger Waters, the co-founder of world-famous band Pink Floyd, has made an honorary citizen of Uruguay's capital, Montevideo. During his visit to the city, he participated in an event to support Palestine. Roger said Israel has never had the intention to allow a Palestinian state. The musician played a concert at the Estadio Centenario. El Salvador's government, through a new tourism initiative, is pushing to revitalize the Nahuatl language. It's aimed at ensuring indigenous people have a voice and visibility.
Children sing the national anthem of El Salvador. They belong to this indigenous community in the western part of the country. It's all part of a linguistics project aimed at reviving native languages in the region.
The idea or the aim of this project is to reach a new generation, so even when grandparents have passed away, the seed continues to flourish, and the Nahuatl language and culture lives on.
Another project aims to increase the production and marketing of clay handicraft.
This initiative has been abandoned for so much time now, it's finally been resuscitated. Our ancestors made only the pot and the skillet. Now we are diversifying and making candle holders, flower pots, glasses, everything that can be bought in a shop.
These initiatives are made possible with the financial and technical support of the Agricultural and Livestock Ministry. It's all part of the Enterprise Competitiveness Program called Rural Sunrise.
We are determined to strengthen not only our identity, but our many talents, and at the same time, it creates employment opportunities.
Tourism can also be one of the main drivers of the community's economies. That's why these young guides are teaching visitors about the Nahuatl people culture.
Our ancestors, the Pipiles, performed their rituals right here, according to the stone we have in front of us. It is a stone they used for meditation while facing the waterfall. When they finished, they would go into the water. They would then emerge healed and healthy.
These projects have already had a direct impact on the quality of life of many families. The Rural Sunrise Initiative is spread across 12 municipalities. Over 6,000 families are benefiting from these social and environmental projects taking place in 85% of communities.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. At least 78 students have been kidnapped from a secondary school by an armed group in the city of Bamenda in Cameroon. The group also abducted 3 other school staff, including the principal. No group has claimed responsibility for the abduction, but local authorities blame separatist militias who have been demanding the independence of 2 English-speaking regions for years. This is not the first time students have been kidnapped in the area. 5 students abducted in last month are still missing. Rescue services in the south of Spain have picked up several hundred refugees from the Mediterranean Sea. Our correspondent in Andalusia, Sergio Rodrigo, has this report.
More
than 500 people have been rescued by Spanish Maritime Safety and Rescue Society, coming in 100 boats. More than 200 of the migrants have been transferred to the port city of Malaga, as you can see behind me, where the Red Cross has set up an emergency camp to assist these people. Among them was a pregnant woman in urgent need of help who was transferred directly from the boat to a hospital in Almeria. In recent years, the route through the Mediterranean Sea has been one of the most popular routes taken by migrants aiming to reach the European Union. In 2018, more than 45,000 people have tried to reach the continent through this sea route, but unfortunately over 560 people have died on their way, according to the International Organization for Migration. Rescue workers are also operational in the Strait of Gibraltar.
And while storms continue to rage across Italy, at least 12 people have been killed on the island of Sicily over the weekend, raising the overall death toll to 30. Among the victims are 9 members from the same family who died after an overflowing river flooded their house. Some of the worst hit regions are Trentino and Veneto in northern Italy. In Veneto, where Venice is located, damage could be worth more than $1 billion.
We regret everything that happened. We are shocked. It's a tragedy that could be avoided. I don't know, maybe cleaning up the river, I can say. Unfortunately, it happened. And when these tragedies happen, they happen suddenly. They don't let you know, because until yesterday afternoon, everything was fine here. We don't know. I'm sorry for these kids. It breaks my heart for these children.
There, we have the river, and the river has overflowed at the top, down there. If you look at the camera from above, you will see the whole route that the river has made. Unfortunately, it caused casualties this year, but it happened on other occasions. This year, sadly, it was heavier.
The African Union has warned about the loss of wildlife in the continent, mainly due to human activities. During a meeting in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, the organization highlighted the importance of empowering communities around the protected areas to adopt sustainable development for both people and animals. It also stressed the importance of promoting strategies against poaching and illegal trade. And now let's have a look at some other stories making headlines from around the world.
At least 500 ambulances have blocked roads leading to Paris in protest at reforms that would allow hospitals instead of patients to choose which ambulance operator to use. Small independent services fear they won't be able to compete with larger firms. Up to 2,000 ambulances were expected to join the protest. Paramedics were also set to gather in front of the health ministry. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev during the first China International Import Expo in Shanghai. The two leaders pledged to deepen ties, especially as the United States imposes stricter sanctions against both countries. They also discussed establishing a cross-border payment system that would allow the use of their own currencies in a bilateral trade.
The engagement level between our countries is unprecedentedly high. In terms of the number of high-level meetings, for instance, you have already held 3 meetings with Vladimir Putin over this year and will meet again at the G20. All this proves that our countries have established ties of strategic partnership and engagement.
Thousands of fish have been found dead in the Euphrates River in Iraq. The region's agriculture chief said the mass death of carp was most likely caused by a bacterial disease that rapidly spread due to overcrowded fish farms. Health officials are still investigating the exact cause but advised people to stop eating fish. Locals have long complained about the mismanagement of river and water resources in the region.
Pro-government forces in Yemen have moved further into the strategic port city of Hodeidah, which is controlled by Houthi rebels. Warplanes from the Saudi-led coalition supported the advance with dozens of airstrikes. UNICEF said the assault on Hodeidah, a crucial port for humanitarian aid, will jeopardize the lives of Yemenis across the country. 40 million Yemenis stand on the brink of famine. The United Nations has called it the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Hundreds of people in Syria have attended the funeral of a girl killed in a bombing near the Turkish border. Sara Mustafa died in the village of Talfinder, reportedly during a Turkish attack on Kurdish positions. Turkey has already announced that it was planning military operations in the area. A woman in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, has set up a miniature village to keep traditions alive. 80-year-old poet, storyteller, and retired school teacher Hatafi Mungoingi has used savings from her teaching career to build a repository for indigenous knowledge and the country's rich cultural heritage. Munongi says she wants to give urban children an idea of how African people lived before and now. The French city of Toulouse has hosted a show in which residents were overshadowed by a parade with big mechanical creatures. A part of the stunt by the French street theater group La Machine, dozens of artists operated a giant spider and a minotaur with 40 meters high each. The creatures are part of the group's Guardian of the Temple show and are based on ancient Roman ruins found nearby. We come to the end of this news brief. This and many other stories you can find at our website, at telesurtv.net/English. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.